This month has been about mindfulness. And um, there's so much to say when we're talking about mindfulness and what that means and how to incorporate mindfulness into our life. And so I did something different this month. I am starting. I hope this is going to be something I'm going to keep doing. The garden chats. So the idea is that there are so many ways and so many people in our lives that contribute to how we live it. And this month's mindfulness series brought to my mind the way in which my garden is a mindfulness place for me. And I thought, um, what better content to bring, and what better resource than to bring you my good friend Karen, who is the owner of Homegrown Gardens Chicago. And she created and creates beautiful garden spaces for people. And I first met Karen about 3 years ago. And what I loved about her philosophy is that it really matched mine on so many levels, in that a garden was not just a place to create and grow food. I grew up having a garden all my life. My dad had a garden. My grandparents had gardens. All my relatives still have gardens. It was just a way of life. We always grew what we ate. And it was just part of how I grew up. And so gardening came easily to me because it's my roots. However, it wasn't always, gardens weren't, vegetable gardens specifically weren't necessarily like pretty. They were functional, but they weren't pretty. And when I went through my divorce, I created a healing garden. And this was the very first time I blended the beauty of flowers and the order and the symmetry of a flower garden with a vegetable garden. And in my healing garden, I created a space. I created a space that allowed me to go into and be mindful. And it was the very first time that I actually used a spot in my yard with an intent. It had a designation to actually bring healing. It was a place where I was surrounded by flowers, and I also had vegetables. It fed me on both levels. And in so many ways, that's what Soul via Soul is. It truly is the idea of feeding our bodies and feeding our souls. And it's through our bodies, through the vessel, through the food that we eat, the things that we think, the things that we consume in this earthly vessel, that actually is the way we get to our higher selves. So when I realized the healing power and creating a place of mindfulness, a place I could go to that was beautiful, that was surrounded, where I was surrounded with beautiful, growing, living things, it just elevated the entire experience. It brought me into the space. And, my parents didn't sit in their vegetable garden. There, you didn't go into it to be. You went there to get your food and to go back. Like it was something that you went to get something from. And when I created my very first healing garden, um, a decade ago now, it was a place where I went, and it gave me something different. I didn't just go and get something. I went and received way more than just a carrot or some beets or some lettuce. It creating a space to be in the vegetable garden by combining it with flowers and a place to sit and a place to linger created this duality. It created more than just the utilitarian functional vegetable garden. It truly was this marriage of yin and yang, of give and take, of light and dark. It really was this place that I could be mindful. I could sit. I could listen. I could watch and linger. And so when we bought this house that we're in now, it's an old farmhouse that we renovated. I knew that I wanted a similar type of place. Yes, I wanted a place to have vegetables and grow all the food that feeds my body, but I wanted a place that was mixed with the vegetables that fed my soul. I wanted spots within the vegetable garden that were filled with flowers. I wanted pockets of the vegetable garden that were just beautiful and places I could have a meal or read a book and be surrounded by beauty. It had to blend form and function. It had to be a unity of function and something more elevating. So that's what I conveyed. So when I met Karen for the first time, I've kind of said, I want a place that feeds my soul. Now, that could come across to anyone else as a little bit odd. She knew immediately what I wanted. I wanted a place that was beautiful year round, whether I had something growing in the ground or not. It had to have balance and symmetry. It had to be beautiful to look at all year round. And when I used to have my vegetable garden 2 decades ago, before I created my healing garden with raised garden beds, it was just dirt. I just tilled the dirt and threw in my vegetables. And a good chunk of the time, it was just ugly and non-functional, and it created a place where the dog and the kids just got exceedingly muddy most of the time. So it really wasn't aesthetically pleasing. It certainly didn't provide a place for me to linger, and it was just not feeding my soul. So the first garden chat that I'm bringing to the members of Soul via Soul is going to be in the garden. And what better way to kick it off than the person who helped create this space for me? And gardening may not be your jam, totally fine. But the message behind this first garden chat and the message behind mindfulness in general is to create a space, whether that's outside, which I would encourage you to do, or even inside. And I have inside spaces where I do mindfulness meditation, and I have spaces outside, like my garden, that also create that backdrop. But the idea of the importance of having mindfulness in our lives is the most important thing. Having a place or places where you can pause, where you can linger, where you can listen and start to tap into your soul. There's power in that. There's power in having a place. There's power in having a spot that you go to rest. That's what my garden is for me. The act of gardening is mindful. Watching plants grow is peaceful to me. And maybe, again, that's not your jam. But the idea is that you are worthy of having a place, a spot, a garden, or any sort of sanctuary that allows you to feel connected to who you are. And in essence, when I am connecting to the plants in my garden, when I am just observing the beauty or watching the bee or the butterfly or even the pesky little worms that I get to pick off, there's something that is so connecting to me as anything else I do. It brings me closer to my humanity and closer to my divinity in the same breath. And that's really Sylvia's soul. Through connecting with our humanity, we get glimpses of our soul. Through fully connecting with our earthly, soulful, and soulful, I mean like literally our souls connecting to the ground, that connects us to our divinity. It is the way through. It is the way. Via. It is the way. Via also means breath. And being in this community, being in this membership, being in this way we support each other is truly an extension of our humanity, and through the elevation of each other, it's the expansion of our souls. And that's a whole lot to pack into a garden chat, right? But that's the beauty of it, is that it's those everyday things that when we begin to pause and rest and take notice of, have the capacity to bring us the most profound experiences in our life. So I hope you enjoy the little chat in the garden with Karen. We are going to be talking about a lot of gardening specific things, which I hope you find useful. But the overarching big message in this very first garden chat is to have a space to bring mindfulness into your everyday, to know that you're worthy of having a spot where you give yourself permission to linger, to breathe, to just be, and simultaneously sinking into your humanity and touching your divinity within the same breath. So enjoy this first garden chat and think about how you can create more mindfulness moments, more meditation, more lingering and pauses in your everyday, and creating them in your environment. Like Karen said, people are just like plants. We just have a little bit more complicated emotions. So we're going to connect to our plant selves in this month's Mindfulness Garden Chat.
Hey, Jada.
Karen, it's so good to see you.
So great to see you. We're doing some good work here.